Imagine, two people work 8 hours every day. One earns minimum wage, the other $250,000 a year. They have the same number of hours. So what's the difference? No, it's not luck, it's value. In this video, I'll show you how to increase your value tenfold, even starting from scratch. And at the end, I'll give you a simple practice. Have you ever thought about this paradox? People work the same number of hours, but their income, opportunities, and influence are completely different. One earns a few hundred a week, another a few thousand a day, but both have 24 hours. So what's the deal? Destiny? Connections? The country they were born in? No. I came to a conclusion that changed my entire life. You're not paid for your time, you're paid for the value you bring in that time. And once I understood that, my journey from a farm boy in Idaho to a millionaire and global speaker started to make sense. It's not magic, it's personal evolution. It's an internal upgrade process. At 25, I was broke, morally and financially. I was working but getting nowhere. It felt like I was giving my all, yet my bank account stayed silent. My self-respect was fading. I blamed companies, bosses, the economy, until one wise man told me, it's not the company that pays too little, that's just what it pays you. And then I began asking myself, who am I as a product? What is my value? Why is my time being bought so cheaply? This isn't about self-deprecation, it's about responsibility. And once I started working not on my career but on myself, the change began, real, noticeable, and most importantly, sustainable. We often want to change the world around us, the boss, the government, market prices, but the truth is, the fastest path to change is to become more valuable. People who deserve respect, receive it. People who deliver results, get offers. And those who work on themselves grow 10 times faster than those who just work. So today we're not going to talk about money, but about something more important, personal value. About how to become the person the world seeks, respects, and values. And at the very end, I'll give you a simple, practical tool, 5 actions that will multiply your market value. But first, let's figure out where it all begins. I often said at my seminars, if you work hard at your job, you'll make a living. But if you work hard on yourself, you can make a fortune. And the difference lies in focus. Most people are focused on their position, their duties, on surviving until the next paycheck. But real growth begins when you start treating yourself as a product that can be improved, packaged, promoted, and priced higher. You know how it works in the marketplace? One product costs $5, another $500, even though both contain coffee inside. But the packaging, the brand, the story, the experience, the quality, all of that shapes the perception of value. The same applies to people. And the biggest mistake we make is believing that our value is fixed, that if we're worth nothing now, it will always be that way. I used to think that too. By the age of 25, I was just a regular guy with debt, no special skills, and a lot of rejections. I worked hard, but my bank account was empty. And then one day, my mentor, the same Mr. Schoaf, looked at me and said, "Jim, if you want things to get better, you have to get better." It felt like a punch to the chest, but it became the turning point. Everything starts with mindset. Mindset is the internal code that drives your actions, words, and decisions. If you think like a second-rate person, you'll be paid like one. But if you think like someone valuable, someone who brings benefits, you start behaving accordingly, and that doesn't go unnoticed. Imagine this. One employee shows up to work, clocks in 8 hours, follows all the rules, and that's it. Another comes in early, learns extra skills, takes initiative, trains others. Both get paid. But one day, a moment will come, a crisis, a layoff, a promotion, and the company will ask who is more valuable to us. That's where the real game is played. Not in duties, but in who you become. Value is the result of 3 things: who you are, what you can do, how you affect others. The first is your character, your responsibility, your ability to keep your word. This builds trust, and trust is a currency people pay for. The second is skills. The more you can do, the more you're worth. The world doesn't pay for your dreams, it pays for your competence. When I started reading 1 book a month, when I began speaking to small audiences, but still unpaid, I got a little better each time, and my value rose with it. The third is impact. You can't remain unnoticed if you have impact, if you help others, if the people around you grow. Because the world is not just looking for performers, it's looking for change agents. If the atmosphere changes around you, if others improve, you're already priceless. And now I'll ask you a question I once asked myself. What value am I bringing? Right now. Not tomorrow, not when I get promoted, but today. Am I worth more than I'm being paid, or am I getting exactly what I'm worth? And if the answer is no, that's not a verdict. It's just a diagnosis. And a diagnosis is the first step to healing. And now, listen closely. If you don't like who you are right now, that's great. It means you have the motivation to change. And that's already half the battle. You know what else I've noticed? The most valuable people are those who made it through their own low version. Those who remember who they were and never want to go back. I, Jim Rohn, wasn't always wise, determined, or disciplined, but I made a choice to no longer be the guy dodging creditor calls, making excuses, endlessly waiting. I started investing in myself, and every dollar spent on books, courses, seminars came back 100-fold. Why? Because I became more valuable. And when I became more valuable, everything around me started to change. People, opportunities, offers. My friends, this isn't the end. In the next part, I'll show you exactly what to do to make your internal value, your worth as a person, as a professional, grow month by month. There will be examples, stories, micro tools, but first I want you to remember one thing. Value isn't a talent. Value is a decision to become someone people want to listen to, someone they want to reward, someone they can't imagine the mission without. I remember sitting in my kitchen broke, without a plan, with a half-empty fridge and a heart full of doubt. At the time, it seemed impossible. How could I become someone who is valued? I didn't go to elite schools. I had no connections. My starting point was rock bottom. But then I heard a phrase that turned my world upside down. It doesn't matter where you start. What matters is who you become. And so I asked myself, who could I become? Not who I am, not who others think I am, but who could I become if I stopped working for a paycheck and started working on my transformation? That was when my internal reconstruction began, and the first thing I changed was how I thought about myself. I had to update my inner operating system. I no longer allowed myself to say, I can't, that's not for me, I'm just an ordinary person. Because it's exactly those phrases that keep people stuck at a level they've long outgrown. If you don't believe in yourself, no one else will either. Remember, you are not your circumstances, you are your decisions. And I decided I will become someone people want to listen to, someone they respect, someone who doesn't live paycheck to paycheck but creates value the world is willing to pay tenfold for. But how do you do that when you're surrounded by emptiness? That's where three things help me. I call them internal upgrades. First upgrade, change your standards. I started asking myself uncomfortable questions. Am I satisfied with my results? Do I deserve more? And most importantly, am I living like someone who wants more? My mentor used to say, don't dream of a millionaire's life if you still think, act, and speak like someone afraid to ask for a raise. I started waking up earlier. I stopped spending time with those who lowered my level of thinking. I removed everything that devalued me. TV, complaints, empty talk, because all of that is poison to self-esteem. Second upgrade, change the language you use with yourself. Language is instruction for the mind. If you constantly repeat, I'm not sure, I don't know, I'm scared, your brain treats that as a command. I started saying, I grow every day, I'm learning, I'm getting better, I'm a work in progress, but with great potential. And you know what? It works, because the brain listens. If you talk to yourself like a future leader, you'll start acting like one. Third upgrade, change your behavior, even if there are no results yet. I trained myself to act as if I was already the person I wanted to become. I got on stage with the inner feeling, people want to hear me, even when there were only 5 people in the room, and 2 of them were just curious, not respectful, but I stood tall. I prepared for every meeting as if it could change my life, and that behavior came before the results. Here's the key principle. Work on yourself in advance. Don't wait for success to act successful. Act successful, and success will follow. I began living as if my value was already high, and the world started responding accordingly. People can feel when you believe in yourself. They see it in how you carry yourself, how you respond, how you listen, how you speak, and on a subconscious level, they decide, yes, this person is worth more. You know what else is a secret? The world doesn't reward what's deserved. It rewards what's convincing. If you haven't convinced yourself, you won't convince anyone else. So if you feel like you're at zero right now, uninspired, broke, without prospects. Remember, everything you need is already inside you. Your job is to unlock it. As I often said, don't change the company, change yourself, and the company won't recognize you and will promote you. But this isn't the end. In the third part, I'll show you how to learn to see yourself not as you were, but as who you want to become. This is the most powerful skill, self-visualization that shapes new reality. Because as long as you see yourself as just another worker, the world won't see a leader, a mentor, or an entrepreneur in you. And for now, remember, your growth is not a career, it's a value strategy. You're either staying cheap or becoming more valuable every day. One evening, when I was just starting to work on myself, I sat down and wrote one sentence: I am valuable. I didn't believe it at the time, but I wrote it, then a second. I am someone who is respected. Then, I am someone others follow. These weren't facts, these were choices. And here's what I realized. Every person lives by a script, but most people didn't write theirs. Their script was shaped by circumstances, parents, school, failures, fears. Real growth begins the moment you take the pen and start rewriting your own role. I call this identity rewriting because your actions always stem from who you believe you are. A person who sees themselves as just an employee won't ask for a raise. A person who sees themselves as just a guy from the neighborhood will never write a book, get on stage, or start a business. But they could if they allowed themselves to become someone new. Yourself is not concrete, it's clay, and you are the potter. Look at Edwin Barnes. Heard that story? He wanted to work with Thomas Edison, not as a janitor, not in the warehouse, but as a partner. He had no money, no education, no connections. But he had a vision of himself. He saw himself as someone he wasn't yet. So what did he do? He jumped on a freight train, went to Edison and told him, "I've come to be your business partner." Edison gave him the simplest job. But Barnes didn't work like a regular employee. He worked like someone preparing to become a partner. And eventually, when the opportunity came, Barnes became the exclusive distributor of Edison's dictating machine. Millions of dollars, respect, partnership. Why? Because he first saw himself in that role, and the world adjusted to that vision. Here's what I want you to start doing today. See yourself as who you want to be. Not tomorrow, not when things come together, now. Because without visualizing your new self, no amount of knowledge, skills, or motivation will work. I know how hard that is. Because your old self pulls you back. It whispers, "Who are you kidding? You don't have experience." But I'll tell you the truth. Your old self is your most dangerous competitor. It doesn't want you to grow because growth is risk. It's fear. It's a zone where no one holds your hand. But that's exactly where your new value is. New influence, new money, new respect. So write a new definition of yourself today. I'm serious. Paper, pen, write. I am a person who, maybe it's, I am someone who brings ideas that transform businesses, or I'm the one who speaks so people listen, or I'm the one who solves problems better than anyone else. That's your new foundation. Now the question is, what does that person do every day? How do they speak? What do they wear? How do they listen? What do they read? Who do they avoid? Because you can't dream of becoming an authority and spend your evenings with people who just complain and gossip. You can't become a valuable product and feed yourself informational junk. I say this bluntly because life doesn't soften its words either. It pays you for who you are. My mentor once told me, it's not the company that pays you that much. That's just what you're worth to them. At first that hit me hard, but then it freed me, because if the problem is me, then the solution is also me. And here's one more thing. Value is predictability. A person who's growing isn't a flash in the pan. They're a steady fire. They're a little better every day. They don't stop. They're visible. They're heard. They get invited. Value means your presence makes things better and your absence is felt. And if you're not being noticed right now, that's not forever. But it is a signal. Work on yourself as a product. Increase your value. Upgrade until the old you disappears completely. And the new one gets invited to the table where the future is decided. Now, it's time for practice. In the next part, I'll give you 5 questions to help measure your personal value in numbers, emotions, and habits. Not in theory, for real. But for now, remember this. The world doesn't pay you for your backstory. The world pays for your energy, your clarity, your discipline, and all of that is under your control. So let's pause, a deep, real pause, because right now, I won't be the one speaking. Your inner self will. The one that either grows or silently gives up. I ask you, don't get distracted, don't scroll, Just think, on the go, right now. We're going to do a simple test. I call it the personal value scale. There are 5 key questions. Answer honestly on a scale from 1 to 10, where 1 equals, I don't have this at all, and 10 it is. This is already my natural level. I'm consistent in this. Let's begin. First question, how much have I grown as a person in the last 90 days? Not professionally, not formally, but as a human being. Am I wiser, calmer, more decisive? If not, you're not a product of growth, you're a product of stagnation, and stagnation devalues. How much? Your score? Second question, how different am I today compared to 6 months ago in habits, in speech, in self-perception? If nothing's changed, that's already an answer. Because if you're not changing, you're not growing. And if you're not growing, your market value has stayed the same. What's your honest score? Third, how much do I impact others? Not formally, truly. Do people gravitate toward you, quote you, change something after talking to you? If yes, you're already a source of value. If not, there's room to grow. What's your score? Be honest. Fourth, how aligned are my actions with the person I want to become? Everyone wants to be better, but are you living as your better version or putting it off? Every day is a vote. You're either voting for your new self or for the old one. How are you voting? Fifth, the strongest, how much am I worth to the world right now? Yes, I'm asking directly. You might be valuable, but are you paid according to your value? And if not, is that the world's problem or an invitation to become someone else? What score would you give yourself here? That's it. 5 simple but powerful questions. Now take a look at the big picture. What do you see? Don't be afraid if the scores are lower than you'd like. This isn't judgment, it's a starting point. Because if you saw a low level, it means your eyes are open now, and a person with open eyes always finds a way. And one more thing, come back to these questions after the video, in silence. Write down your answers, and write one sentence. This is who I am now, and this is who I choose to become. You can hide in routine your whole life, or one day, you can be honest with yourself and begin to grow. And now, I'm speaking to you, the viewer who made it this far. That means there's a longing in you for a deeper life, so don't stop. If this video touched you, subscribe, but not just formally. Subscribe to this idea. I no longer just work at a job, I work on myself. Like this video if you want it to be your reminder. And leave a comment. I am increasing my value. It's like making a pact with yourself. Because ultimately, your future isn't what will happen, it's what you create. And it's not created by your company, not by the government, not by the market, but by you, through growth, through focus, through your new self. So, if you've listened this far, that already says more about you than you might think. It means something essential has awakened inside you, a readiness to become more valuable, a readiness to stop living by accident, a readiness to stop measuring your worth by someone else's standards. Because friends, the world won't ask you how much effort you put in. It will ask, what did you do with what you had? And even more bluntly, who did you become, despite everything? Now let me tell you the one thing that changed my path forever. It's not lack of money, age, or starting point that holds you back. What holds you back is the version of yourself you haven't yet had the courage to rewrite. When I was at rock bottom, it wasn't money that saved me, it was a new identity. I saw myself as someone worth more, and I started acting like that person, even before anyone else believed it. Because you know what? The world is always late. You become more valuable, and only then do they notice. First, you work in silence, on yourself. Then, your worth rises, and eventually, you become impossible to ignore. Want more respect? Become someone worthy of respect. Want better pay? Become someone they can't afford to lose. Want influence? Become someone people listen to, even in silence. And here's my final call to you. Don't wait. Start today. Write your new self-image. Measure your value, and more importantly, raise it with your own hands every single day. Because you're not just a worker, a specialist, a function, you're a product. And your task is to make that product so valuable that people pay for it, listen to it, remember it. I'm Jim Rohn, and I know, you can grow tenfold, but start at least with intention. Because sometimes one honest intention is already an entirely new life. Now, it's your move.